Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
For those of you who are new to our events, I'm Interim Dean Michael Scharf, and I'm also the director of the Cox International Law Center. And on behalf of the faculty and the staff and the students of our great law school, we welcome you to the 2014 Klatsky Seminar on Human Rights. Now, the Cox Center actually was created in 1991 with a $4 million endowment. But our human rights program got kicked off in 2001, 10 years later, when one of our trustees of the university, Bruce Klatsky, very generously gave us a very nice endowment that goes to send 2 students every summer to Human Rights Watch. And he also is on the board of trustees there and got us these permanent slots for our students. And this has launched some of our students on amazing careers in human rights. And the rest of the money goes to this endowed lecture series. And over the years, we've had some amazing people give this lecture, and no more amazing than the person we're going to have today. But some of you I know have been here over the years. You know, last year we had Harold Koh, who was the former State Department legal advisor. We've had Samantha Power, who had just won her Pulitzer Prize, and it was years before she ever became our U.S. representative to the United Nations. We've had Navi Pillay, the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And it's really been a field of superstars that have come to Cleveland for the Klatsky. And so today's speaker is right up there. This is Mark Ellis. He is the executive director of the International Bar Association. I met him 20 years ago when he was the inaugural creator of the American Bar Association's CELI program. And that stands for Central European Law Initiative. That's since been morphed into a larger project of the American Bar Association, including its ROLI, its Rule of Law Initiative. And we have several of our alumni that are now working in the organizations that Mark started. Mark also started an organization called ILAC, the International Legal Assistance Consortium. And he's one of those people who just creates institutions that last the test of time and do good things around the world. And meanwhile, when he has time, he hopscotches around the world himself, and he's involved in transitional justice and fighting war crimes, doing, I guess you were the legal advisor to the Kosovo Commission, so the whole country of Kosovo, in part, owes its existence to Mark and his colleagues' work. And he's just done amazing things. Well, today he's going to be telling you about something brand new. He's actually launching it. This is the first public time anybody will hear about this. And there are some audio visuals that he will be sharing with you. So you're in for a real treat. Please join me in welcoming Mark Ellis, our Klatsky lecturer.
Michael, thank you very much. It's a little intimidating because Harold Koh, Samantha Powers. I'm not any of those people, I assure you. That's your A-list group. But I am honored to be here. I'm honored to be here primarily because in my previous visits here, I've come to really appreciate and admire this institution and this law school. It's quite remarkable. You have a great reputation internationally. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of students over the years, and so it's always a pleasure to come back here and to be here at this institution. Michael Scharf, who is one of the greats in international law and is recognized worldwide. The friendship that we've had for all these many years has been something that's really treasured. So again, it's wonderful to be here. I apologize in advance because, as Michael says, I've tried to put together a combination of a PowerPoint with embedded videos. I had never done either of these, so I'm experimenting with this. But I felt when I came here and my office said, well, this is a great opportunity to hawk your new book. And I said, no, that would be quite boring to do. I want to do something a little different, which I hope you'll enjoy. It's really going to be up to you to engage in this conversation. I'm going to lay out this project on pictorial evidence and human rights violations, and then hopefully we can have a bit of a dialogue on this. About 3 years ago, I was asked by a television television, TV station in London called Channel 4. It's an investigative channel to look at some videos. And these videos were taken during the civil war in Sri Lanka. And the videos are quite graphic. They were quite graphic. In fact, I've embedded some of those in here. I've kept the most graphic videos out, but I wanted to warn you what I'll show you. And they asked me to come in and review these videos and to see whether or not I felt war crimes had been committed. So I reviewed those, and my answer was yes, there was certainly evidence of war crimes. And then what surprised me was that week when they put it on air, the first thing they said, this is again 3.5 years ago, we cannot verify these videos. We cannot authenticate what you're about to see. And in fact, it went so far as to say, if any of you, the public, have any knowledge of these videos, we would like to know. I thought, well, now that's odd, because that video undoubtedly raised the consciousness of those who watched it about some horrendous crimes that were being committed. But in regards to whether or not that video could be used as evidence to bring to justice those individuals who had committed the crimes, the answer was absolutely not. So it got me thinking, well, maybe there's a solution to this problem. And that led me to think with social media, and the use of social media, because that's what this was. It was a video that was just sent in to this Channel 4. And then later on, as I was watching and interacting with CNN and BBC, as other videos were being used, the same thing was happening. Can't authenticate it, can't verify it, and therefore for me, what was the use of that? And the idea then was to say, well, could we create something that in essence answered those questions and that made those videos relevant as evidence in war crimes prosecutions? And that's what we started to work on. And let me start with just this introductory piece of video, and then we'll see.
This unverified video posted to a social networking site purportedly shows
Would the war crimes committed against them be investigated and those responsible brought to account?
We have been unable to verify its authenticity. We don't know where it was taken, or when, or by whom.
So the idea here is that you have the growth of citizen videos. All of you is much younger than I am recognize this. You use it, you see it on YouTube. The growth of the use of citizen journalism is quite astounding. There's reasons for that, actually. Mainline media is no longer engaged in these environments. The liability is too great for that. So you have freelance journalists doing this, or you have citizens doing that. that's where we are. Every single video that I showed you there, and there's many more, were videos that I was asked to review. Many more actually too graphic to show. But all of those were sent in to either Channel 4, CNN, BBC, and so they were giving them to them. But as you noted, they were not able to be used in any way other than being shown on YouTube. So the idea of what this is about is to be able to use videos generally. And it's not as if it's never been done in the International Criminal Court for Yugoslavia, for Rwanda, or for the ICC. And it's used primarily for these reasons. At the trial, in the sense of showing conduct or context or just knowledge of what was going on, knowledge of individuals that should have known, but they didn't do anything to stop those atrocities. The threshold determination, this was something used in Sudan. Gravity is always a big issue in war crimes tribunals, particularly the International Criminal Court, because they won't engage with any cases unless it meets this gravity. So of course videos can be very strong in showing that in fact it has reached that level. In investigations, this is one of the most important areas, I think, and that is something that's we don't know about yet. Some of those videos actually were sent to, they were brought to an investigative journalist who came to me and did a documentary that was shown 3 weeks ago, and it was a similar situation. But this had to do with Nigeria and Nigerian government perpetrating crimes against citizens. It had never been seen before. So that would have been an example of where those videos, if they could be authenticated, if they could be verified, could be the answer to at least the initial investigation that a court would be asked to do. The admissibility standards for videos was something that became quite important. And this is where we decided we would go and speak to the International Criminal Court, to all the regional tribunals. And we conducted a research project also with DLA Piper out of its Washington office to assist us in going through all the evidentiary requirements. We wanted to know what is required to accept pictorial evidence, to accept one of those videos without having the chain of custody. So if Dean Scharf was out in the field and he was taking that video, then if he was not available, we didn't even know who he was. If he sent us that video, could that video be used in a court of law? And this is what we came up with, the admissibility standards of relevance. The reliability is probably the most important. In the sense, the ability to be able to authenticate it, its significance, the issue of ensuring that it's not unfair prejudice as well. So we started looking at what those admissibility standards were. And why did we look at it? Because if we were going to build this app, then the app had to answer and had to ensure that we could tick those boxes on that. So the reliability was, the heart of that was authenticity. Just as you listen to the CNN, BBC commentators say we cannot verify this, we can't authenticate it. To authenticate the videos, you have to deal with the originality of it, the integrity, and the date and location. Those were generally what we were told in our meetings with the criminal war crimes courts. That for them was absolutely crucial. And so the court would look at when it happened, where it was shot, exactly where was it shot, the video. And it has to bring that all together in order to build up this question of, is this video authentic? The other areas that we looked at and that we felt we had to do was whether or not that the source was biased. Was there any bias to presenting the videos? Was it automatically generated? And this became the key to us. We would have to create something that in essence focused on the video itself, not on who was taking it, but on the act itself. But the court would always be looking at this. Was it contemporaneous to the event itself? So the longer the period was between the time the video was taken and the time it was presented to court, the more problematic that would be. It wouldn't mean it would never be used, but these are all issues that the court would weigh. What's the purpose? Was it for propaganda purposes that it was being used, or was in essence just a citizen journalist or an investigative journalist or somebody in the public just filming the event itself? And that way, that would be the crucial point. Whether the information can be independently verified and tested. And this gets to the issue of focusing on the app itself, on the video itself. Can you show that it can be verified without the chain of custody? And so what does that require us to do? It requires us to embed in metadata all of these points into the app itself. Because right now, digital evidence, this is what it has to do. They have to go out and they have to see the version. They have to have the original version, who filmed it, the date and location. It's a forensic process now that's used for any video that you want to use for a court. They have to be certain with that. And that takes a lot of time, and oftentimes it will get you nowhere. And that's why when they show those videos, in the end, they can't, CNN or BBC, they can't answer that question. And certainly a court's not going to be able to answer that question. And without that, then the video stops being relevant at all in a court process. But that's the current point. But what happens if you could take all of that information and embed it in the app so that when that video is sent in, all those questions are asked or answered? Another person that we went to at the beginning of this project was Justice Richard Goldstone. I believe he's also been here lecturing a number of times. And we wanted to get his sense of this as well. So we brought him in as a consultant early on, and we felt that this is a degree of credibility. And listen to him about what he's talking about evidentiary footage, videos, about what it would have meant back in his days in the Yugoslav days.
Well, unfortunately, one must recognize that war crimes are going to continue to be committed. The potential impact of this project is huge. Certainly the first chief prosecutor of the Yugoslavia Tribunal way back in 1994, I would have been so delighted to have this sort of photographic evidence of the perpetration of serious war crimes. We didn't have that, and we had to rely more on oral testimony. But photographic evidence is very powerful, especially if authenticated, as this program aims to ensure. The photographs will therefore be admissible as evidence, but also provide important corroboration for the evidence of victims and eyewitnesses. The potential impact of this sort of photographic evidence can be illustrated, in fact, by the experience I had regarding the massacre of many thousands of innocent civilians outside Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1995. We had the evidence of only one eyewitness, Drazen Adimovic, who told us that he had been one of the firing squad, and he lost count after he shot and killed over 70 of these men and boys outside Srebrenica. We were able to send coordinates to the United States intelligence people in Washington, D.C., and they provided us a first in confidence with satellite photographs, satellite imagery, supporting the evidence, corroborating to the full the evidence of Adimovic. And that was obviously hugely important in our further investigations of the crime. Because of our agreement with the United States government, we couldn't use the photographs and evidence, but imagine if we could have. What a huge impact that would have made. In fact, Ambassador Madeleine Albright, as she then was, handed the photographs to the media at Srebrenica on the first anniversary of the massacre. So the potential, as you can see, is a huge one. Well, I think one of the important aspects of this eyewitness program is the concern of the International Bar Association for the security and safety of the photographer. Witnesses need to be protected, and the app has been designed to provide that very security. So this is really a wonderful use of modern technology and moving it really, broadening the envelope to assist the prosecutor and investigators in this sort of war crime.
So once we had that and talked and felt that we went through the process of getting a sense of what was needed in the app, we then started to build the app. And the app here, and I have it on this fairly large Android here, so I'll try to show you on this as well at times. But let me just walk you through, because particularly for the younger students to get your sense on that too. So it's installed. It will be, anyone will be able to install it. It will be installed. We're using Android now, phones now. The reason was it was easier at the time we started designing it to put it in the Android, although we will be able to design it for the iPhone. But most important, it was felt to us that the Androids, that's the phone that's being used in the areas that we're interested in. It's not iPhones in Syria, it's Androids. And so that's why we designed it that way. So you use this as well, and once you download it, you begin the process of setting up and creating a signature on this, including, and this was interesting, when I downloaded on this device, this device health check gave me an X on the time and date. I said, well, that's funny. I stole it from my son who won it. But I said he had an Android, so I needed to use it. But the time and date had never correctly been set. And so it was interesting that the app, the software, immediately noted that and would not allow me to download the app, the software, until I fixed that, that part of it. Then the encryption is crucial, and you take 6 photographs, and that becomes the encryption key. That's the key that allows you to get back into the back-end security vault where you send the video. So once you create that, it's a signature to that phone. And it tells us that it's coming from that phone, that it's a legitimate phone with a legitimate software app on it. You can put further details if you want. You can use your name if you want. You can use an alias if you want. You can give us your email if you'd like. You don't have to, because remember, I don't need that information to make this relevant for evidentiary purposes. But if you'd want to, and we may want to communicate with you, you're able to do it. Then you create a password swipe. And the password swipe is crucial, because that's what allows you to move in to the app itself. And when you download it, it's just a regular camera. And it's embedded in the camera that's in your iPhone or your Android phone. But if I swipe it with 3 fingers, it now has you won't see it, but it has a blue border. Thank you, Michael. The blue border means that I'm now inside the Eyewitness app. That becomes the security now. If I want to go out, I can go out of it, I'm back on that. Any pictures I take in the white border goes to my phone. So if you pick up my phone and you look at the photos in my photo album, whatever it is, you'll see it. But once I go into this and I take a photo, then it's all part. It's behind the system, and it's behind there. And so I'm creating this. Once I move into that, I'm now inside the Eyewitness app. I'm now beginning to go into the secure part of the app. I talked to you about the metadata. This is now what the metadata captures for us in this app. Once you're inside, behind the blue border in the eye, it provides all of this information. And so when you send in a video from this app, and I'll show you how that's done, it will provide you this information. I was this morning at your coffee house by here, and I took a picture of my actually I was preparing for this lecture, and then I just sent it back to the London database, and I said, well, let me know what you find. And in about 5 minutes, they sent me back this. You won't be able to see it. It tells me, it went to Google, it told me exactly where it was. It shows the picture of the coffee house I was. It gives me absolutely where I was in Cleveland, here at the law school, or in this area. It gives me all this information about the GPS coordinates, exactly where it was. All that, it now immediately comes through because I set that one photo back to the back-end database on this. Let me give you a little description. You'll see two young people in here that's helped us design this, because everybody I've worked with on this project is about 19 years old. That was my sense on that. But I mean, this is great. So take a few minutes, just a minute on this, and you get a sense of what some of the. Whoops.
The metadata that is included in the media file after it's been taken kind of describes, the who, where, when, what, why, and how of the media as it was shot. The way that metadata is gathered is by sampling of the geolocative data, i.e. Your GPS coordinates, neighboring cell towers, if that's available, neighboring Wi-Fi addresses that the device happens to pick up on, also Bluetooth neighbors, if that is available. Metadata is also comprised of the various sensors that are on the device, such as your altimeter, your gyroscope, your accelerometer, things that can provide even greater picture of the details surrounding the media capture.
So once that is all embedded in there, the information that comes back, if you're reviewing this at the back end, you immediately begin to see the picture of where it is. Here is a case of the director who took a shot, Windy, and so it verifies that that image has come from this phone. And why is that important? Because only this device can get into the secure vault. So if you try to get in without it, you can't get in. We need to know that it's a verifiable key. That's the key. It's what you created at the beginning. Why is that? Because it always goes back to the evidentiary issues. Can you verify? Can you ensure that it's authentic? Can you give us the time and date, where it's done? And most importantly, can you ensure it's not been manipulated? If anyone were to try to manipulate with the footage, we'll know, because it will come up that way. And then it comes, the other part, of course, is the time, date, the location, all of that information. Exactly what it came out with the sheet that they sent me this morning when I was sitting at your coffee house on this. So now, I was able to get into the back-end database because I had the key, because I downloaded the app, and it was a select key that allowed me to do that. That means they can look at it and they can read anything that comes its way, including the shot that I just did. Now the app stores the capture footage, as I said, in this blue area here, and I said that was my password. Those are all videos that have been taken on this device with the Eyewitness app. All of those are hidden if I'm not in it. So if I get out of it, they disappear. You won't see them. You can only see it when you're in on this. And so as it says here, it does not appear in the standard photo album. It only appears here when we open it up and we get inside that. Now here's, just to give you a couple points of what's going to happen on here. You can go in this gallery like I'm in the blue gallery, and you can start working at it. You can start taking one of the photos here, and you can open that up. and it's now encrypting again. Once I have that, I can go in there and I can take any notes I wanted to take on this. I go back on this, and I can also pinpoint, and I can take that little and come down here and then make a further information on there, which I'm going to show you on this. You can sort the videos and however you want to do it. And as I just said, you can take the notes on that particular video, on that camera, or as I've just done, I've tagged something. Let's say you want to tag an individual that you've just shot before you're sending it on this. You can do that, and it allows you to then put additional information that you want in there. Things that you might know about that particular incident that we wouldn't know. So it provides you with just additional information as well. And we're still working on exactly what that's going to do, but that is based on our conversations as well. So now you're in a situation where you have to transmit it. Today at the coffee shop, I was on Wi-Fi. I could immediately transmit that. But if you're not, you can hold it back. You can transmit it at a time when it's right for you. Or you can transmit it immediately. This is one of the keys we felt. Once you're in the app, you have to send it back to us first. You cannot send it to YouTube. You cannot send it to anywhere else. You have to send it to us first. Why is that? Because again, it gets back to the authenticity of it. It gets back to be able to say we can verify that. Once it's sent to us, then the user could send it elsewhere, could send it to YouTube, upload it wherever he or she wanted to send it. But this allows us to have the first case of this. The video, and I won't show you a video because it's too long, but it tags every single point of the video. It's tagged by times. You can press and stop it and put notes on the videos, as I said earlier. That also helps us to ensure that once the video comes into the back-end database, we know if it's been manipulated at all, it will indicate that. And so that's another safety issue as well. So now you've got the whole issue of taking the app, it records, it encrypts everything, it keeps a hash value of the pixel count. That's the technology that my developers say is important because it tells you exactly if anything's been manipulated. We would know. It's bundled, it's encrypted and signed, and then it's transmitted back to the secure so-called vault on that. Now, you might ask, with all the problems of governments attacking so-called secure locations, what does the IBA, how the heck can the International Bar Association, an organization of lawyers, ensure that once these videos go into this secure vault, that no one's going to attack it and try to secure it? And the idea I had was, we'll go to a group that gets 100,000 attempts to penetrate their system every single day. And that's LexisNexis. That LexisNexis that all of you use, you should feel confident in using that. Because I thought, well, heck, 100,000 attempts to penetrate that is somebody I want on board. And fortunately, LexisNexis works very closely with the International Bar Association. So we approached them and sat down and said, here's what we have, what do you think? And I give LexisNexis, boy, I give them a heck of a lot of credit. If you don't use them, you should, because they're doing good things. They've built us this back-end database on this. And one of the things we had to ask ourselves is where should this back-end vault be? Should it be in the United States, or should it be somewhere in Europe? How many people think it should be in the United States? How many in Europe? Yeah, Europe wins. The United States, this is another thing that DLA Piper did in the sense of privacy issues, security issues. Where do you want to hold that? And it was felt that in the United States there wasn't that degree of confidence, actually. I'm not suggesting DLA Piper said that, I shouldn't say that. But we interpreted it that way, and we made the decision. And so that vault now is in Europe. It's in London as well. Now, the last point I want to make, because I think this is extremely important, and Justice Goldstone mentions that, we felt we had a responsibility if we're asking people in conflict zones to use an app that could actually put their lives in jeopardy. We needed to try to provide this as secure as we can. We learned earlier on this process that 100% security will never be met. Can't do it. But we wanted to create something sufficient security to where the user could have a sense that they could use it and feel comfortable about it. And as a first line of defense, if a security person was, or an armed military person, military government person were to try to take the app, your camera, first of all, since you're out of the app, you're only going to see the photo. You're just got a regular camera. You can only get into it, remember, in the secure way by swiping it and giving your whatever password you created on the digital. But we also felt that we wanted an opportunity to immediately get rid of the whole thing. And security has played a very important role in what we've done.
Here's how it protects their identity. The video captured by the Eyewitness app is automatically encrypted, then transmitted by the user via an established network to a specialized database at a secure and protected site. The safety of the user is always paramount. If, before it has been transmitted, it suddenly becomes too dangerous to have that data on the device, the app and any related data can be immediately erased from the device at the touch of a screen.
So we felt that this was important to be able to give additional security, but we remain absolutely certain that we can't give 100% certainty. But we feel fairly confident right now, and it's being tested right now, actually, as we speak. It just started going out testing in the field this week. So in the end, for me, it's a puzzle that citizens' video, particularly ones that we're talking about through Eyewitness, can play a very important role. It can complement the witness testimony if in fact you have witnesses, although again with this video you don't need witnesses there to verify anything. Satellite images, that's something that George Clooney has actually been involved with in supporting satellite images, and I suspect his wife will now be very engaged with that. She's a real prominent human rights lawyer. I like to say that she had been a rapporteur for our Egyptian report, which happened about 2 days before it was announced that she was marrying George Clooney. And that next day, in our website, you can, as you know, you can follow the usage. It peaked, and we didn't quite know how it peaked, but then we realized it was all on that one video that we had of her presenting the report. So once again, video playing on that. So the idea that it's being used as part of this puzzle with these other areas is there, and this is kind of the conclusion. I'll end with one second.
This project is at the very intersection of law, public policy, human rights, journalism, and technology. It's difficult to imagine a project which more directly touches the forces that affect our lives today. It is premature to know whether what we will produce will be the sort of forensic breakthrough in the order of blood typing and DNA. But I think we can conclude that what will be produced by this project is a step forward in the effort to bring to justice the perpetrators of some of the worst abuses of this or any other generation.
And finally, in the coming back full circle to why this had an interest for me personally, I will refer to my book now for 1 second. And let me just read you a few lines, because this starts this. This is a process I went through to gather as much information I can, much of it being done by Sharif Bassioni, but others trying to get a sense of what's happened since 1945. I'll just read you this. Since 1945, there's been 253 distinct armed conflicts in which 7.8 million people have lost their lives. However, it is estimated that if victims of repression by authoritarian state regimes were included, the total may be as high as 101 million victims between 1946 and 2008. This figure does not include those who lost their lives as a consequence of armed conflict. Their inclusion would increase the total to 202 million victims for this same period. During this same period of time, however, only 823 persons have been indicted by international or regional courts for the crimes that they've committed. That's what moved me. That's why whatever we can add to the matrix of instruments to bring to justice those who have committed these atrocities, we need to support. Thank you all very much for allowing me to be here. I'm happy to take questions. I'm sure there are lots of them.
How do you guys plan on getting the word out about the app to the specific people that you're looking to get it out to?
The question about how we're going to project this, there's going to be a two-pronged kind of campaign on this starting at the beginning of next year. One will be to the general public. Our sense is we want as many people to know about it as possible and to be able to download the video. The second is targeted groups, and these are advocacy groups in some of the countries that we feel would be needed. As I mentioned, the app is being tested right now. We're using some of those groups in Syria, Egypt, Nigeria, excuse me, not Egypt, well, Egypt, Iraq and Nigeria. So it would be those groups that we would focus more on in training as well. So that's the approach we're doing. I forgot to mention that it goes into the back-end database, but of course, what do you do once it's there? And this is where there would be a team of lawyers, hopefully maybe even some of you that will work in this field, who would be responsible for reviewing these videos, and in essence becoming advocates. I use that term now. We want to become advocates for the videos and for the pictures, and that would be the responsibility of this legal team sitting back, in this case, back in London, to advocate for that. Yes, ma'am.
One of the initial slides you put up talked about the reliability of the videos as being very important for ultimate admissibility, and you put up a bullet point that you wanted to ensure that it wasn't coming from a position of bias.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I didn't quite get from all of the other data that was coming in. How do you then take this very subjective issue of bias and put it into the objective video?
Two responses to that, and on that slide, that's one of the reliability part, or the issue of whether it's a bias or being promoted. It goes to the weight of whether or not the video. So it's not the only one. It doesn't knock it out if in fact it has come to the court from an advocacy group. But the issue is, to date, a lot of the videos have been presented just for that purpose, without the verification, the authenticity. Our view is that if we can promote the Eyewitness app as being one that's clearly just taking the video of the act itself, that should help with weighing that particular provision. But it's up to the court to decide on that. There's no question that a lot of the videos that I've seen from Syria, I'm sure many of you have as well, have been taken either by the government or the opposition as well. But my view is, nonetheless, they show horrendous crimes on this. So I think that in that case, that issue would be outweighed and permitted to come in, so long as those other issues are checked off.
Could you talk about the process after these videos are in the back end? I'm sorry. Could you talk about the process of selecting the videos and where they go next,
Yeah.
and also what you could do to keep our government out of the back end?
Again, let me take the last question first. I don't know whether we can. I think there will definitely be attempts to penetrate it. We knew that starting it, but I felt that at least with LexisNexis as kind of a partner, that we had a better chance of ensuring that they would not be successful in doing that. But again, there's not going to be 100% certainty of it. But we're trying to build the ability to ensure that that doesn't happen. What happens, the first point is when that video comes back, as I mentioned, the legal team has to review it and then has to make a determination on how best do we advocate for that video. Is it a new situation where we need to bring this information to an investigative commission? Do we bring it to a court? Is it an ongoing situation? If so, where should it go? Should it go to the domestic, to international? This will all have to be determined. Now, one thing behind your question that maybe one of you will ask is that, remember, if I download it and I do all the screening, I have the key. I keep referring to it. I have the key. You can get into the back-end database now. You can send in a video. What happens if I send in a video of a murder? But it's not a war crime, it's just a murder. How about domestic violence? Somebody's making a film of that. How about a lot of other things that are coming? That's a challenge that we're dealing with right now, because they'll be able to come in. That video will reach our back-end database, because remember, he has or she has a key to get in. So what do we do with that video? That we're still got to work it out on that. What's our responsibility? Sorry, yes.
In the terms of, like you said, which was brilliant, I was wondering how this is going to work with the general public with this app, because as you said before, you make several examples of domestic violence, negligent homicide, involuntary manslaughter, issues around law enforcement and excessive force.
Yep.
And how do you protect the person who's taking these videos? And this is going to be available to the general public.
Yep.
Also, in the issue of how do you ascertain context and mitigation within taking of these videos? As she was saying, there may be some bias. But how do you ascertain that? Is the video in itself all-encompassing, or is there, because people say it may be subjective?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be up to the trier of fact, to the court, to determine whether or not. And I said that at the first one of the first videos about not only the relevance, but is it prejudicial? They will have to weigh all of that. So that will absolutely be the decision of a court to make that argument and to make that determination. I think for us, the idea of being able to, again, with certainty, check the boxes for what's required to bring in that evidence is as far as we can go. In the end, the court will still have to make that determination. But they'll no longer have to worry about the chain of custody for this video, where it was taken, when it was taken. So they won't have to do that.
What about the person taking the video in terms of retaliation, in terms of exculpation?
Yeah.
Because of there's been recently issues of persons taking videos, and there was retaliation by very different entities, governmental entities, and how does it protect the anonymity of these entities, and how does that play out?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I would say, at the beginning of this, there's a little slide that says you can add your name, your alias if you want. You can use an alias. You can put your your email there if you'd like, but actually you don't have to do any of that. We never have to know who you are. It doesn't matter to us. What we do know is that you use this app, and we do know that whatever you film is being represented at the exact time and date and place where the metadata tells us it's being taken. And so in that way, you never have to contact us. You never have to engage in us. If you want, you can do that. You can come back into the database. You can tell us who you are, and we can engage in it. But you don't have to do that. We allow that to be a decision that you make and not us on that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
So just going back to talking about the safety of the video.
Yes.
You said that with just a swipe,
Yes.
That the app and its contents can be deleted.
The entire app.
What if I'm captured and I don't have time to do
Yes.
it? Well, I don't know if it's a suggestion or if it's something you're working on, but you know, like in your home security system, say that you're being held up, there's a home invasion and your alarm goes off, and instead of putting in your normal code, there's kind of an emergency code that you can put in. Is there something like that that would be available? Say I'm captured and my captors have my phone, they know about the app, they want me to go into it and show them the video. Can I put in like an emergency code that lets you know I've been captured? And then another question is there a live option, like a camera swap? Meaning, when I take the video, does it only show what's in front of me, or can I swap the camera?
You can swap the camera.
Okay.
You can swap the camera. The thing on the security, and I think that's a very good point, the answer is no. We haven't done that. I don't think we would do that. But it is just with a, I'm in the blue. You saw how I was in the blue. It's one button and I'm back in the white. So it is exactly that quick. And as soon as I'm back in the white border, the only thing you're going to see if you take this is whatever photos I have that I took with the regular camera. You will not see anything I've taken with the blue, what I refer to as the blue border, with the Eyewitness app. None of that, you will not be able to see that, only when you can go inside it. Now let me, because I always like to be realistic about it. If you're using this in a country that's pretty good at figuring out how to deal with these, will they be able to take this device and say, all right, I'm going to get to the back of this. I'm going to find out what's in there. I think I'd be disingenuous to say no, they would never be able to do that. Our point is we think that we wanted to create the security part for what I refer to as the first line of defense. Somebody coming up to you, can you quickly get out of it? Can you dispose of it? Can you erase it that quickly so that you have a better chance of not being retaliated against? I think that's the best we can do. And in the introductory points, the slides that the people will have as they close it, that's going to be, that we have to make that certain. There's lots of slides here that talk about safety first and that, and that's going to be part of that. On that. Yes, and I'll go up after that.
Question. You said that you don't have to identify yourself when you send something in, but when you download the app, is there an identification?
No. The only thing you're identifying is, I mentioned you take 6 photos. That's our ID process. So you take 6 photos, and the app is recognizing that. That becomes your signature. That's as far as we know
of
who you are.
Your piece of equipment.
That equipment.
Right.
It's only your equipment. We don't know who you are. We don't particularly care who you are unless you want to tell us. But what we're interested in is you've downloaded the app, and you've now created it, you've opened it, you've gone through the steps, and once you go through that steps, you have a special, I refer to as a key, an ID, that when you send in a video, we know it's coming from your device.
How does that impact reliability then, in the sense that someone can come on anonymously and stage something? Everything else can be in sequence, no changes, nothing. The doctor
doesn't solve that problem at all.
Okay.
If you want to sit up there and take, but that's the case with any camera. If you want to stage something, you can stage it. That will never, we would never be able to prevent that. But whatever you're filming, I can tell you exactly where you are, when you did it. Is there any other, as they told me, they told me there was a Wi-Fi. They identify the Wi-Fi in the coffee house. So they told me that. They'll tell me if there's any cell towers. They can tell me all of that. But they cannot tell me, nor anyone could, if that's being staged on that. That would be something that would have to, again, be dealt with in court. I'm sorry, I'm going up there and I'll switch. Way up there.
Just a quick question. And I don't know, maybe I missed it. So you have to, the person that takes the video has to hit a send button. It's not, once you start rolling the camera, it's not instantaneous. It's not happening real time.
No.
You have to, okay.
You have to, because you may not be in a situation where you can send it. Maybe you're out in an area that doesn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so you're not going to be able to send it. Once you send it, I could show it to you on here, but once you send it, it tells you, you can watch it, it's encrypting. Once you send it, it will go eventually. Even if you close the device, it's encrypting and it's going to be sent. And then you know it because there's a green checkoff that tells me that it's gone. So this morning when I sent that photo, I opened it, I tapped on that one photo, and then I said send. And it was sending it, it was telling me, it was encrypting it. It finished, it gave me a green arrow, and then I knew it had been sent. And then the back end people sent me back and said, well, we didn't know you were in Cleveland today, nor in a coffee house on that. Yes, and then Michael.
Do you envision a much wider application of this in terms, starting with the UN, perhaps peacekeeping forces? Frankly, any government, I could see adopting this. You may know more and more policemen are now being equipped with body cameras. Yeah. But see this, perhaps for archiving, maybe the post-war.
I think absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges, at least in my own thinking, has been not to do too much too soon. And so, for me, the app is designed just as it says, eyewitness to atrocities. So we're going to try to educate people that this is what we're trying to garner. But could the same app, could the same application be used for everything else? Absolutely. Could you change the back-end security vault, or could you, in fact, create another way of sending it? Maybe you have maybe you say if you have police brutality or something, send it. Check this address. You can send it there. So I see where this could continue to grow into lots of different areas.
But even in the war crimes setting, I could see both Hamas and the Israelis this summer wishing they had.
Yeah, I'm sure. And the ones that have been most, some of the people that have been most interested in this actually are the journalists, the investigative journalists. They're the ones that we've brought in and are eager to do it. Michael, then I'll go back.
So Mark, you said you're beta testing this in the field now.
Yes.
When will it roll out?
Well, we have this has been a kind of a long process to get this right. And as I said, these are dynamic young people. We've hired in 2 developers in our staff now, and we hired a director now as well. If all goes well, we would expect to launch this early next year. We've got about a month to test it, maybe 60 days to test it before it closes with the developers. I will say this, I'm delighted, and I'll say this about the International Bar Association, because when we were designing this and thinking about this, I eventually then went to the board of directors and said, unfortunately, the IBA has some healthy reserves. And I said, I think this is a project that the IBA should take on. If not, I think it's not a project that the IBA should support as an outside entity. And I wasn't certain what they were going to say. Their first decision was, we want this to be an IBA entity, which is why I talk about it now as an IBA. But the second one was they allocated, transferred to our bank account $1 million. Now that was important, because it meant that I don't have to worry about raising funds. It means that come next year, early next year, when we launch it, we've got $1 million to launch this thing. And I think that makes it a much more realistic chance. But it's been a bit, we started this 3.5 years ago, but I think all of us who are engaged with this are adamant that we will not release it until it's spot on. We just can't afford it not to be. So it takes some time. And for you, the younger people, you know what that means in the sense of the technology. But for me, it's been a learning curve, but I'm enjoying it.
Last question.
Tim?
Trials are usually text-based processes, right? A judge reads an indictment, he reads briefs back and forth. That's certainly the case domestically. Internationally, I wonder if you could say how important the role of an image, the role of a picture is in war crimes tribunals, and whether this adds a particular value that I think most American judges would be very uncomfortable with some of the graphic stuff you've shown. They don't want to prejudice the jury. But I'm wondering, in an international tribunal where you don't have a jury, whether maybe you should sort of train judges to be comfortable with images, or what you think the value of an image-based evidence would provide to an international tribunal.
You know, I think it's significant, and I think listening to Justice Goldstone, of anyone who's going to tell me you're dead wrong on this, this is just not happening. I felt really a degree of comfort knowing that I've got Goldstone saying, yeah, in fact, I wish we had it. In all of the discussions we had, particularly in The Hague with the International Criminal Court, from the judges to the prosecutors, we had several meetings, without question there is a sense of excitement, because I think they would want to use this. They just haven't been able to do it because of the problems of verification. But the idea of authenticating it and verifying it is there. I know there's a lot more questions, and I know my time is up. I want to thank you again. I really enjoyed being here. I hope
you be around for the next half hour. We're having a reception in the rotunda behind us, so you can ask your questions of them then. We have something special for you. It says the Klatsky Seminar on Human Rights, Mark S. Ellis, JD, PhD, October 14th, 2014. I think Mark has given new meaning to there is an app for that. So, Mark, thank you very much. Please go here from the Cleveland International Lawyers Association. All right, well, I also want to thank